everyone, and welcome to the Race for the Win podcast. My name is Alex Harrington, and this, next to me, is Lydia and me, and welcome, more importantly, to the 2025 F1 season. It is beginning this weekend in Australia, the Australian Grand Prix Down Under. We've been awake for a long time because we've been covering the press conferences from not so sunny old England. But in this podcast, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the three biggest plot points going into the weekend. And, well, that's got to start with Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton making his Ferrari debut as well. McLaren, they are going in for the first time in a long time as potential champions. But we've also got three other teams, potentially even more. We've got McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes going in, potentially in contention to win the championship.
And, not to forget, we now have two Australian drivers on the grid. We have lost Daniel Ricciardo.
We missed him already.
We've got two in his replacement.
Yes, and two is always better than one. So let's begin talking about Lewis Hamilton. Look, he made a few headlines at the beginning of 2024. Yes. Time is a blur. At the beginning of 2024, he moved from Mercedes to Ferrari, and now this whole process, what felt like a really long year, has finally come to fruition. And this weekend, he's making his debut in Ferrari alongside Charles Leclerc. What is going to happen with these two?
Well, hopefully, for the team's sake, not a lot in terms of like them against each other, because although, actually, side note, there's going to be a lot of side notes in this because we're very sleep deprived.
Oh, yeah.
But I do love that Ferrari lets their drivers race. So I think it will be really exciting. I think they will have some great on-track battles, but obviously they're going to keep it clean. They're not going to risk the wrath of the Tifosi or Fred. So I think it's going to be really, really good. I think obviously we need to temper expectations. It's going to be a long adjustment period, I would say, for Hamilton. Like everything has changed, like language, where he's living, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
You know, how the
back of an F40 now.
How the team works, the powertrain, everything is different. Yes, he's a 7-time world champion, but you can't just assume he can just step into a car and win 19 races in a year.
Yeah, that's right. Lando Norris said in the press conference yesterday that he expects it to take a good half a season before we really see anything special from Lewis. And
do you think that's wishful thinking? Or
I think that may be wishful thinking. Yeah. Look, we have an idea that McLaren is 3 to 4 tenths faster than probably the rest of the grid after testing. Obviously, testing caveats are in place, but we you know, it wouldn't be a push to think that McLaren are going to be the fastest going into the season. They've apparently made some brave developments, and it looks, if you guys haven't seen the brake cooling on this car this year, wow, it looks incredible. It actually looks like something that Red Bull was banned from doing last season or the season before. So whether they'll keep it, that might be the brave part. But the McLaren car looks great, but the Ferraris look almost as good. Really, again, asterisks here with testing. They look like they could be the second fastest car on the grid. And we know Charles, we know Lewis. They're both incredibly talented drivers, but Lewis has got this learning curve. You know, everything. He said in an interview, he was looking at the race traces. They were upside down compared to what he had at Mercedes. You know, it's small things like that adds up. A Formula One team is not a simple beast. It's detailed, and there are several layers of communication alone that is in Italian now for Hamilton. You know, this is going to be very difficult, but he has experience from McLaren. He has experience from Mercedes, and I know those teams are, you know, maybe from the outside very similar looking. Ferrari is a whole different beast. It is a whole different, like you said, culture, processes, the language. It is very, very, it's going to be a challenging season for Lewis.
And when he moved to Mercedes, the powertrain didn't change.
That's right.
So then when he was talking in the press conferences yesterday, he was asked about kind of how it felt transitioning into the new team, and if it was more like 2007 or 2013 when he joined Mercedes, and he said 2007, and that makes sense because it's just completely new.
Yeah, it's Formula 2 to Formula 1.
Yeah.
It's
Well, in terms of the change, not the quality.
not the quality, sorry, yes. But look, if you are a fan of Lewis, if you're a fan of Ferrari, then this will make you feel better. Lewis is happy driving the car. He's comfortable. We know for the whole of the ground effect era with Mercedes, he was not happy. He was fighting against it constantly. Lewis and Leclerc, they have very similar driving styles as well. So it's not going to be a sense that the car is going to be moving away from one driver. It's going to be honing both kind of the expectations of both of these drivers. Now, they were both asked, or rather Charles was asked in the conference yesterday, who's on top? You know, that is the big question, isn't it?
As in, who's the number one?
Exactly. What is the hierarchy of this team? And he said, in Ferrari, we don't have a hierarchy. Ferrari doesn't do a number one driver, because to Ferrari, the number one is Ferrari. So it sounded like something from Drive to Survive, didn't it?
That also sounded like it was rehearsed. I quite enjoyed that.
That was beautiful. We should do this professionally.
I don't know how I feel about the whole no number one driver thing. I mean, it got McLaren in a bit of a pickle last year.
Yeah, Rosso Corsa rules. Maybe is that a thing that they're gonna?
Maybe.
I don't know. Just let them race. You know, they let Carlos and Charles race.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there wasn't really a clear number one driver then.
But the issue is if they are in championship contention.
Yeah.
The issue is if it's a possibility that one of the drivers is going to win a championship, or, you know, if one is much faster than the other, they will have to choose.
Yeah.
And this is where it's going to be very difficult for Fred, because team chief, Fred Vasseur, he has strong relationships with both drivers. You know, he has been nursing Charles Leclerc through the Scuderia for so long. He's almost built, well, not necessarily he, but recently he's continued building the team around him. But Lewis, he has, you know, a relationship back from the GP2 days.
Mm-hmm.
So there is going to be an emotional conflict there for him. So it's going to be very difficult for him to start to prioritize. But when the team does, or if it does reach that point, he is going to have to make a decision. But it is going to have to be purely statistical.
Yeah.
Who does he choose? The fastest driver.
Yeah,
that is it.
It's got to be the one that's most likely to win the championship.
Exactly.
Surely.
And to be honest, I have a feeling that this year it's going to be Charles Leclerc. I don't think Lewis is going to be able to adapt fast enough.
No, it's just all because of the transition period. But that's also why he most likely
he's doing it now.
Wanted to join this year.
Yes.
So that he can get settled in and then hit the ground running in 2026.
Yeah, like most of the teams on the grid, they are not going to be focusing on this year. And Lewis isn't either. I don't think he's always going to be racing to win.
Oh yeah.
But his main focus this year is, like you said, going to be adapting, going to be making sure he knows what's going on. So when 26 does come, and Ferrari apparently have this very potent powertrain, they've been kind of teasing us for a long time about it. That is when he will really, really go for his 8th World Championship, which would be exciting.
He does look very happy though.
Oh.
And reinvigorated. It's like he's got a new lease of life. He's got Angela Cullen back with him. Like, you can't help but get a little bit excited about all of that. Like, everyone, if you don't love a reunion, I just don't think we'll get along.
I totally forgot about Angela Cullen.
I know, and she's there. She's in the red, and it's so exciting. And it's nice seeing him back with a familiar face. Obviously, the separation of him and Bono, if you're an emotional soul like me, it hit you hard.
Yes.
So it's nice seeing him have a familiar face, and I think that's so important with all of this change as well.
Yes.
So he does look very happy.
He does, and Charles looks happy as well.
Yeah.
And Fred, they all look happy. It's one big happy family, isn't it? One big happy Tifosi. So look, I think this is going to be great for them. I think this is going to be a really positive year. It's not necessarily about the performance. It's just about building this team.
Yeah.
For 2026. Is there anything else we need to say about Ferrari and about Lewis before we move on? Like you said, they're all very happy. Lewis is saying he's slowly bonding with the car. He's not quite there yet, but he's slowly bonding. They came out very optimistic after testing. And okay, quick on the go question. Where are they placing in the constructors standings? What a question.
Why would
Go
you
on,
just
off the top of your head.
What, at the end of the year?
At the end of the year.
Oh my
If you
Lord.
get it right, you're fine. No, so if you get it right, 50 quid.
50 quid? 100.
Okay.
Ooh.
That's not a number. Second.
Second.
Yeah,
That was so
okay, I was going to
stressful.
say second, but because I'm going to say third. We'll come back to this moment at the end of the season.
Behind who?
McLaren and
Williams.
Bull.
I knew it.
yeah, maybe. No, Red Bull.
Do you think?
Or possibly even Mercedes. I don't know. That leads us on
I'm so
to
stressed.
our next point of call, which is McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
They're going in, really for the first time in a long time, as championship contenders. We expected them to do all right at the beginning of 2024, didn't we? Like, they had a bit of a push in 2023, but it was 24. They suddenly, something clicked. It was Miami, Lando got the upgrades, and something clicked. The car, the flexi wing worked. You know, something happened, and the team gained so much confidence from it. And suddenly Papaya was back on top. And it was interesting. Was it Gunther Steiner that said, I think it was Gunther Steiner, former Haas chief Gunther Steiner said, they are one of the reasons why America is suddenly a bit more involved in the sport, because they were the ones who ended the Red Bull dominance. And regardless of the team, it's actually been so important for the sport, because we saw a brilliant season last year. A brilliant season. So let's talk a bit about McLaren then. We kind of talked about it briefly at the beginning of the podcast. Testing went very well for them, didn't it? They were a good kind of 3-4 tenths up from what we could see, asterisks. And they're going in optimistically.
Yeah, and also the other drivers like George, Max, they've all said really at this point, they can't see anybody else beating McLaren right now based on what they saw at preseason testing.
Yes, and Max has been like, well, you know, Red Bull's not in it right now. Red Bull's not in it, but
could they be sandbagging?
They could be sandbagging, but also it's a long season. Like we saw, like McLaren is Exhibit A in this sense. The season is long. It all really comes down actually to the rate of development for these teams. Like, how much effort are they going to put in developing these cars to win 2025 when they could be putting effort into 2026? So a team, for example, like Aston Martin, I can't see them really focusing on this year, but McLaren, they are going to put in a bit of focus. Or maybe they're so far ahead they don't need to.
They might be banking on the fact that other teams will be shifting focus very quickly, but it's just, that's a gamble, isn't it? And I do think the thing with McLaren that is putting them, I mean, obviously you come in with confidence when you've just won a championship, and they were looking so strong at the end of the year, but they're just so integrated. Like, they seem to work seamlessly. Zach Brown and Andrea Stella, they work really well together. You've got Oscar and Lando, they had their little moments, but actually that's a sign of a very strong driver lineup. They've got two drivers who are both able to potentially fight for a championship, which is amazing. But out of the top 4 teams, and correct me if I'm wrong, because my brain, I think, is still asleep. But
I never woke up.
Out of the top 4 teams, they're the only ones with the same driver lineup as last year, right? Red Bull, that's changed.
That's right.
Ferrari's changed. Mercedes has changed. McLaren hasn't.
Yes.
So they
have their processes.
They're already situated. They know what they're doing. No one's adapting to a new team or, you know, a new dynamic between teammates. they're all ready and raring to go.
Yeah, and you know, it's something that's quite rare actually between teammates as well, is that Piastri, he wants to win, but he is very happy to work with the team. And, you know, over the history of Formula One, we've seen teammates that both want to win and will
don't know what you're talking about.
and will do anything to get there. Because like you said, I think both drivers are capable of it. But Lando's been there for a long time. Lando right now is definitely, obviously, the more experienced driver. Whether he's good enough to become world champion, obviously he wasn't last season. But we saw in the last few races, his racecraft. You know, we always say it's very different battling at the back compared to battling at the front of the grid. But now he has that confidence. He's been up against Max, of all people, one of the most aggressive drivers on the grid, and he now knows how to handle him. So he's going into this season with the tools he needs to win. You know, he's already admitted last season, he actually admitted this yesterday in the conferences, that he wasn't equipped to fight for a championship last year. He'd never fought for a championship. You know, McLaren for so long have been building up to this point, and it was thrown on them. They didn't realise they were going to be at the front of the grid, and Lando's thinking, whoa, wait a second, like, how do I do this? I'm so used to attacking 19 cars ahead of me and not defending for Max Verstappen behind me, who's going to dive bomb up the inside of the corner. You know, and we saw that countless times throughout last season. But the last few races, we saw Lando start to counter those attacks. And that is so important in his development, because he's no longer just a kind of a midfield driver. He is a driver that is, you know, he's creating the skill set. He's learning the skill set that will allow him to push for the championship. And I don't think Piastri has that yet. I just don't think he has. Not that he hasn't got the potential, because I think he does. He is such a talented driver, and McLaren really are so lucky to have two brilliant drivers. So look, I mean, you know, Lando is going to go into this season as the priority, regardless of what McLaren says, unless something crazy happens. But I do think they're going to prioritize Lando. They want Lando to have that, you know, we've been training Lando for the whole of his McLaren career, which is his whole F1 career, and now he's a world champion. That is what McLaren is capable of. We can nurture to world championship status.
Yeah.
That is what they're going to be going for. But Oscar is going to be right behind him.
And also, if there's any moment where it looks like Lando is faltering, they need a driver who is right behind him and ready to take that over.
Exactly.
And then that's a difficult conversation. One I'm very happy I would never have to have.
Yeah, but it's kind of like Hamilton and Bottas, isn't it? Like Bottas was never a championship contender because things just didn't line up for him. He just maybe he didn't have that star power. Maybe he wasn't quite as aligned with the car as Lewis was, whatever. There are so many variables we can't really say. But he was the best rear gunner that guy could have wanted. Like, he was there to defend Hamilton, but he was there for if something happened to Hamilton, he was there to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
You know, and to be honest, Russell kind of followed in his footsteps, really. And, you know, Russell obviously got on better with the car in the ground effect era, and it actually turned around, didn't it? Really, like, Hamilton was then there to pick up Russell's pieces. So, you know, it's an interesting dynamic, this whole kind of lead driver versus rear gunner. You know, it's difficult to actually compare drivers because there are so many variables. That's what Perez failed at.
In the latter years, yeah.
Yes, of course. Well, I mean, 2021, he was on it. But that just goes to show that it is also down to the car.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, that proves my point. It's even in the same car, you can't really compare. But anyway, let's get back onto McLaren. Sorry, we were going off on a bit of a tangent. But Piastri, let's talk about Piastri very quickly. He's got a contract extension.
Yeah, and I think McLaren were very clever to get that nipped in the bud quite quickly. Especially
and ahead of the Australian Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they always like to do it in the lead up to a home race, I think.
Yes.
But it's in the moment in Drive to Survive when they ask Horner, out of the 2 McLaren drivers, who would you sign? And he was like, Oscar Piastri.
Yes.
To be fair,
Next day.
he could have been answering a different question. We don't know.
Leave your reviews for Drive to Survive Season 7 in the comments below, because I'm very interested to know what you thought. Was Russell ever disqualified? Apparently not, according to Drive to Survive. That's a whole nother video. We should do that. We will go through. We will fight against the myths and the legends of Drive to Survive Season 7, of which there are many. Crazy program.
I did enjoy it though, just quickly. Anyway, you have to take it for what it is.
Yes.
But,
entertainment.
But I'm not surprised that they wanted to get Oscar tied in. They've now got Lando and Oscar tied in for quite a long time, and I think that's really exciting.
I mean, look at it this way. They have 2 drivers, incredible drivers. Lando only said like 5 days ago, yeah, I wouldn't mind going to Ferrari.
Did he?
Yeah.
Must have been asleep at that time.
He was asked, I'm so sorry, I can't remember who asked the question, but he was asked, look, Hamilton has gone to Ferrari. Is there a team that you dream of going to? Now, we know that every F1 driver dreams of driving for Ferrari, but if he wins the championship, he is suddenly the most valuable driver, well, one of the most valuable drivers on the grid. If something happens with Hamilton, let's say Hamilton doesn't pull through. Lando and Leclerc.
Ooh,
it's an opportunity for Ferrari. Yes, contracted, but contracts aren't worth the paper they're written on. We know this.
I can't see that though.
No, I can't either. But
I also
there's an opportunity.
Can't see Charles Leclerc just ever leaving. He'll be there when he's 50. Like he is Ferrari, and he can't leave.
No, I'm talking about Lewis Hamilton leaving.
Yeah, I know, but then I didn't explain that very well. I think I had half that conversation in my head. Lando's not going to move. Lando's not going to move to a team where he's not the first driver, and Ferrari are so like Charles Leclerc is our future.
Well, yes, you say that. Is that going to change with Hamilton? We literally, we just said, Ferrari number 1 is Ferrari. Yes,
but
I know
they're at different stages in their careers, aren't they?
Yes, but my point stands. Lando is going to become sought after.
Yeah, he already is.
So exactly. So look, get Piastri in a place where like I said, that nurturing cycle of the team. They've proven they can do it, and Piastri, he doesn't need a lot of nurturing these days, does he?
No, he's so good.
He's all the way there. Right, let's move on to the penultimate story of the podcast, moving into the Australian Grand Prix. But actually, it's more 2025, isn't it? This is going to be one of the most exciting years of F1 ever, I think. Unless McLaren has run away with it. Everyone believes, all the drivers believe, that there are going to be 4 teams fighting for the championship. And like we said at the beginning, that is McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think, first of all, do you think it's true?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an incredibly close year. And I also think you're probably right. Those will be the top 4 teams. But I think the gap between the top 4 and like 5, 6, 7 maybe, I think that gap is going to be a lot smaller. And I am excited because I think there's quite a few different variables involved. Obviously, we've got the fact that it's now I'm not even going to try and count how many years in. It's the last year of the current regulations. And everyone has kind of converged a little bit. But because we're going into 2026 next year with the regulation change, it's like what you were saying earlier, how quickly a team's going to move on to the development of the 2026 car rather than the current car. So, and I think each team's probably going to be a bit different on that. So, and I think we might end up seeing some really exciting moments from teams that are a little bit more unexpected. Williams. I can't help but feel excited about Williams.
Aston Martin. I know Adrian knew he's going to be focusing on 2026 for the most part. But look, he's going to be looking at the car. He's going to be like, well, there's an obvious error. Like, he's going to see the wind. He's going to see the air in 4D, knowing Adrian. He's going to be like, cover that hole.
Take that side pod off.
Take that driver out. No, enough. Oh. Enough. No, but it's there are opportunities for, to be honest, a lot of the teams out there. Like you're saying, I do agree the top 4 are going to be the top 4. But yeah, 5, 6, the middle of the grid, they're converging as well, and they're going to be right there. Alpine,
yeah,
they're really positive. Was it Pierre Gasly who said, "This is the best place we've been in for a long time"?
Yeah.
I mean, Flavio Briatore works fast. Obviously we're joking, but this is gonna be a really, really exciting season. And, for me, what makes it really exciting is the fact that Red Bull are not starting on they're not starting with confidence. 2024, they kind of downplayed it, but we knew they were going to be quick because 2023 was just ridiculous. Even 2022, we were like, they had all the reliability issues. We were like, oh, this could be interesting. Turned out, no, not really. 2023 was dull, but 2024, when McLaren shot up the grid, suddenly it got really exciting. Now we have double the cars fighting to win. That is going to be so good. But I think also we have some incredible drivers on the grid. I think we're getting to the point, I feel like the sport right now, there's just so much talent within it. And I know there's with the cost cap especially, there's brain drain and that kind of stuff going on, which, to be honest, it doesn't really feel that way. People have kind of said that, well, actually, no, people just want to be in Formula 1. But look at Ferrari, one of the greatest driver pairings ever. Same Mercedes, George Russell, we know how talented he is. Kimi Antonelli, we know how talented he is. Like, there's something special about that guy. Whether he can apply it to Formula 1, we'll see. Same thing with Red Bull. Lawson is pretty damn good. He has something about him.
Yeah, he's got the fight, that's for sure.
Yeah, and obviously Max is just ridiculous. So, we're getting to the point where, we've talked about McLaren. We're getting to the point where these teams, maybe Red Bull not so much, but these teams are becoming so substantial and so kind of full of talent that it's like perfection versus perfection.
Why do you say Red Bull not so much?
Purely because I feel like Antonelli has something special about him. Where Lawson, I feel they filled a hole.
Oh.
Because they had to. I think they chose the wrong driver to begin with. I think Tsunoda showed enough of an improvement to warrant a Red Bull seat. He also has experience, racecraft. Lawson is a great driver, but I don't think he has the experience yet to pull back when he needs to pull back.
He made some immature choices last year.
Yes, and if anything has shown us, the immature choices are the ones that stop you from winning. Piastri, when he first started with McLaren, he was making miscalculated judgments, and it was a mindset that he had to break out of. And I feel like Lawson still has to do that. And that may not take the season. It might be a third of the season or whatever. It might be just a few races. Or he might come in this season and suddenly be, okay, I am mature. I'm learning from Max Verstappen. I have his data. I have his analysis, his strategy. I can learn from this and go in as a great driver, which he may well do. I just feel like there's a little bit of a learning curve for him.
Yeah.
Kimi, again, is very young. But he does have something. He has this raw talent that is rare it's rare within a driver. Whether, I don't know, I think the Mercedes have cars of that potential as well this season from what we've seen so far. Caveat, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I feel like Red Bull is the one team of those four that are just struggling a bit. And, whether that's... I mean, look, things are going on. That might affect the processes within the team.
Yeah,
the confidence of the team.
Key people leave as well.
Exactly. Adrian Newey. We thought he was going to buy a yacht. Well, he did buy a yacht.
He did buy a yacht, but
we thought
he's not on it, though.
Yeah, he's not on it. He's in Silverstone. I feel like Red Bull has been through a lot, and they had to just put some sellotape over it, some Scotch tape. What do Americans call it? You wrap it up. Band-aid.
Band-aid.
Put a Band-aid on it.
Plaster.
I feel like they are currently being held together with a bit of chewing gum.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thought.
Okay. No, I was just interested. I do think that we're going off on a major tangent in true us style.
Major tangent?
I do think... I agree that I felt like Tsunoda deserved the seat. But there's also the argument that Liam is early in his Formula One career. It's his rookie season. Yes, he did a lot of races last year, but technically it's still his rookie season. He can be moulded into their little perfect Red Bull driver. Don't you think? You don't think he's malleable? He kind of gives off a little bit of a mini Max Verstappen vibe, and if he can learn from Max, like Max is so intelligent with the moves that he makes. He knows the regulations inside out, and when he pulls off certain maneuvers,
like Austin, for example, last year.
It's all perfectly timed within the regulations.
He drives through the loophole.
Yeah, and what a person to learn from. So actually they could be thinking more long term, and Yuki's already got his style and his way of driving, whereas Liam is malleable. Maybe. I don't know.
You may well be right. But wasn't that the point of AlphaTauri?
I knew you were going to say that.
Toro Rosso, whatever you want to call it, Racing Bulls. Yeah, Tsunoda was the perfect... I know Tsunoda was like a little firecracker. He's maybe not as malleable, but he's grown up. He's become much more mature. We saw last year how mature he's become, and with that, how his racecraft has evolved. But it's okay, because there are potentially bigger things for Yuki coming in the future anyway. Look,
we'll
Honda has moved to Aston Martin. Yuki could well... there's an opportunity there for him. Cadillac.
Yeah,
there's
true.
There's 11th team coming in 2026. Yuki is going to be sought after. He's a solid driver.
And there's only so long you can not progress.
Yes.
It's like any job. Like, if you're not progressing somewhere, then you got to get out, haven't you?
Exactly. Right. The bonus story of the day is the fact that 2 Australian drivers are joining us on the grid at the Australian Grand Prix. Now, this is really exciting because, look, Jack Doohan is making his full-time F1 debut. The issue is he's going to be under so much pressure, not just from his Australian fans, but if the rumours are true, from Alpine itself. This is going to be a quick one. We're going to wrap it up pretty quickly, but let's talk about this first of all. Flavio Briatore, advisor for Alpine, F1 extraordinaire. He's already said that, look, Colapinto is waiting in the wings. If Jack Doohan doesn't perform, then we've got someone to replace him. Because Colapinto is a great driver.
Yeah.
So what is Jack feeling going into this race?
I mean, he's going to feel pressure anyway, because one, it's his, apart from Abu Dhabi last year, it's the first race of his rookie season. It's his home race.
He wasn't great in Abu Dhabi.
There's all this external pressure that's being put on him. So previously I would have said, he's just probably going to keep his head down. But when he spoke to the media ahead of F1 75, he kind of snapped back a little bit, and I kind of loved that. It was like putting his foot down. I have earned my seat. There's pressure wherever you are in any seat in the sport. I don't care, basically. And I thought that was a really good way of dealing with it. One thing that annoys me slightly is Alpine is saying that it's coming from the media. But Flavio did say, what I can say is that Pierre and Jack will start the year, but you never know what's going to happen throughout it. That has come from within the team. And then they signed Franco Colapinto, who obviously was quite impressive last year. There obviously is pressure. It does get run away with a bit in the media because people are talking about it, fans are talking about it, but there's obviously something going on.
Yes, I agree. But like you were saying, F175, that conference was eye-opening. Because you think, Doohan is like under the thumb of Flavio, first of all. Alpine is in a difficult... I know they ended 2024 on a high note, but really, if you take the whole season into consideration, yes, they did improve, but there are a number of factors because of that. So there's pressure to drive for a team that maybe there isn't quite the potential there yet. But then he, like you said, like people were asking him, like, how do you feel under the pressure? He was like, I'm always under pressure. I'm an F1 driver.
Yeah, what's changed?
I'm
Nothing.
one of 20 out of 8 billion people. Like he's a good driver. All he has to do is not put his head down. He needs to keep his head up and think, okay, I'm going to make some moves. You know, there's a line, isn't there, where you have to make these kind of immature, like we were saying, these immature moves. But he almost has to show that he's willing. Otherwise, if he does play it safe, then, Colapinto with Williams, he showed with varying degrees of success that he is willing to put the car in a place where it shouldn't necessarily be.
Yeah, you've got to be punchy with it. But with like the immature moves, I was thinking more with Lawson on Perez last year.
Yes, and where feelings of anger become apparent.
Yeah, just stay composed. I mean, she says that. I've never been in an F1 car and had that level of adrenaline. So, But
right, yeah.
you still, that was immature, the way that whole situation was dealt with. Yeah, he's got to put himself out there and make some kind of ballsy moves. But the problems will happen if it ends up in the wall multiple times.
Yes, you're exactly right. No, I'm wishing the best for Jack. I think he's great, and I think we saw a different side to him in the press conference, and I liked it. He has the fire, like he has that fire burning in his gut, and I think that's only going to do him well. So, and if what we've heard from the Alpine team is correct, then they might be onto something. I'm not sure if they will be, but they might be. Look. All to race for this weekend. It's going to be a really exciting race. It's a shame for people in England and GMT time that it is so early in the morning. I think the race is, 4 a.m. GMT?
Yeah, we're thinking of you.
We think of us as well, please.
Yeah.
But we will be here for you if you're there for us. Thank you so much for watching once again. Make sure you like and subscribe. And like I asked before, please do leave your reviews of Drive to Survive down in the comments. We are very interested to hear what you think. If you do leave a comment, we might read it out in the next podcast, and I don't know if that's good or not, but we'll see what happens. Thank you again. See you next time.